Oh, okay. Fine. You're young and spry. You don't need it. You'll be young forever.
Yeah.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Elderkin, if you can lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans. And for the invocation, we have Reverend Rick Maisano.
Father, as we embark on this meeting tonight, we ask, Father, your presence here. We pray, Father God, for our leaders, our elected leaders, to listen to what the people are saying, but also, Father God, that everything be done in order and respect will be given to all people here. Lord, we pray, Father God, for our servicemen and women, our police, first responders, fire departments, Lord, those, Father, who keep us safe. We thank you, Father, for the blessing they are to us and in this town. We ask, Father, your blessing upon their families. And Father, we ask, Lord, your blessing upon America. Please bring this country back together as one. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Councilmember Barbara Bukowski. Here. Councilmember Monica Elderkin. Here. Councilmember Tiffany Lewis. Councilmember Stephen Nowicki.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Filarski.
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Nowak.
Present.
All are present.
Welcome to the February 10th Town Board meeting. Next up on our agenda is our public comment period, seeing we have no presentations for new business. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. All right, we have 11 speakers on the agenda tonight. I think it's sufficient with this sign-up list. We can give everybody 3 minutes. Just want to make sure the rest of the board is fine with that. All right, and with that, we're going to begin public comment by calling up Dan Ginovetzky.
Hello. So I'm here to ask that every single member here vote in favor of the Affirming Lawful Policing Community Trust and Focus Local Resources on Public Safety resolution. I think that's super important. I think it's a great start. And I say a start because in my mind, I'd like to throw this idea out there, and it obviously would require lots more discussion, but having a policing community advisory board. I would love to see, a doctor who could be involved to talk to police about how their tactics affect people and what they're seeing in the trauma centers. Talk to them about how to help people when they're suffering mental health issues or drug issues. Talk to people, maybe get a sociologist who studies crime patterns and the trends. Get a faith leader. I just saw that the city of Buffalo just had a huge meeting with all of the local imams to talk about ICE and the current issues and racial profiling. When we have Muslims in Cheektowaga, and I'm sure they're all very nervous about this. I would love to see like a faith leader, imam, be involved in that. So in my mind, this is vitally important. I expect every board member to vote in favor of it, but it's just the beginning of this conversation and where this road leads. And that would be my proposal and my thought on what this community needs, so we have some trust between our police department and our residents and know that they really are working in our best interest. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Dan Collender.
I want to talk about Resolution 2026-92. And as you all know, our police department interacts with other departments and agencies on a consistent basis all the time. I hear them on my scanner. We have a warrant for so-and-so from such and such town, such and such state. They'll take the person if they're within 100 miles or even if they're across the country sometimes. That's the way it goes. It's the same way, and it should be the same way with federal agencies. So if the federal agency says, if we arrest somebody who's shoplifting and we know they have a criminal record, we've determined they have a criminal record, and we know that the federal agency wants them, why would we not turn them over to the federal agency? That's foolishness not to. We can't be letting the criminals run all over town, going out and causing all the crimes, which brings up, has anybody looked at the DHS's website that shows roughly 10,000, there's 476 people that have been convicted in New York State of various crimes, okay? Some of them been housed right here in Alden, okay? They could be convicted of entering illegally, re-entering illegally, arson, rape, all kinds of heinous crimes, burglary, DUI, could be a number of things. Why would we want those people to stay in our country? We have enough people already in our country. We don't need to import more criminals. So I don't know why anybody on this board or even sitting in this room would want criminals that are here illegally to stay in our country. Okay, and I'm going to ask again, who has looked at the DHS website to see all those convicts? Nobody on this board is taking the time to go look at all those people that every single one of them says convicted. Okay, there's 476 just in the state of New York. Okay, that's the current list. I highly suggest before you vote on this, you take a look and see what some of those crimes are. They are very heinous. I'm sure you wouldn't want those people for your neighbors. I'm sure you wouldn't want them living in your apartment. They are heinous crimes. Okay, they're downright, they're the worst of the worst, and that's what it's labeled, DHS worst of the worst. They are very bad people. Before you go and vote on telling our police they can't go and contact ICE, you really need to look at that list. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sandy Prisblack. Sandy, before you speak, Sandy, I have to give my disclaimer. This is our third meeting discussing this issue. I'm asking everybody in the audience, well, if you can count the second, yes. I'm asking the audience to give the folks at the podium the respect that they deserve. We don't need heckling from the audience or anything else. So, thank you.
Okay, when you see me scoot out of here at 6:15, it's because I have another meeting I have to go to online. So let's start. I will watch it tomorrow and see what happened. I am here to support the passage of Resolution 2026-92, although I do not feel it goes far enough. I have learned that many police department policies, including Cheektowagas, are written by a private company called Lexipol. These policies written by Lexipol, including CPD's 414, do not appear to protect civilians' constitutional and human rights, but do appear to protect police departments from being held accountable when constitutional or human rights violations occur. I have also learned that CPD's own 2021 Reform and Reinvention Plan goals included the formation of a Chief of Police Advisory Board consisting of members of the community that was to meet every 4 months. 5 years later, and to my knowledge, this board does not exist. I have two addendums to suggest as well. An addendum in support of the New York for All Act, which our state senator April Baskin is a co-sponsor. An addendum to direct the immediate formation of the Chief of Police Advisory Board. Despite what you might be reading in the White Ring Cheektowaga Facebook groups, it is simply not true that the majority of voters support the current administration's immigration policies and practices of the Department of Homeland Security, specifically ICE and CPD. In a January 2026 New York Times Siena research poll, 63% of U.S. voters disapprove of how ICE is handling immigration law enforcement, and only 34% approve of the current president. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cynthia Suggs.
Hi, this is my first time, so bear with me. My name is Cindy, and I'm a resident here in Cheektowaga. My credentials for the following are that I have a bachelor's degree in history, a bachelor's in political science, a master's in financial crime. I've worked with Congressman Higgins. I was born in the U.S. to an immigrant on a green card, and my cousin is the member of parliament in charge of all of immigration for Canada. Today, I'd like to talk about money, since that's what seems to matter. Between 2002 and 2013, New York City practiced something called stop and frisk, which I'm sure that you're all aware of. Stop and frisk was justified as a lawful crime prevention strategy, but in practice it overwhelmingly targeted Black and Latino residents. Courts found that the policy violated the Constitution because it resulted in systemic racial discrimination. New York City paid out $13 million for one of many settlements, saw years of federal court oversight, were forced to institute mandatory reforms to police practices, and have experienced lasting damage to public trust in law enforcement. Even a decade later, the city is still associated with it as a symbol of discriminatory policing. So how does this relate to us? Cheektowaga's police cooperation with ICE risks the same lawsuits. Immigration status is not visible, so enforcement often relies on race-based proxies, like appearance, accent, or neighborhood. Even without explicit racist intent, the result can be disproportionately targeting of Latino and immigrant communities. As in New York City, that pattern alone can be enough to trigger civil rights lawsuits under the Equal Protection Clause. New York City learned the hard way that discriminatory impact matters just as much as stated intent. With just one successful lawsuit, our city could lose money, autonomy, and credibility. Federal judges can impose oversight, require policy changes, and mandate data reporting and training, limiting local control of our police departments for years. The lesson here is simple. When local police blur the line between community safety and immigration enforcement, they risk repeating New York City's mistake. If the outcome looks like racial profiling, Cheektowaga will face the same legal, financial, and reputational consequences that followed stop and frisk. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Filipski.
To me, it doesn't matter if you support ICE or you don't. I really don't care. I'm a 30-year veteran of the Cheektowaga Police Department, retired. I've seen firsthand what goes on. The Cheektowaga Police do not ever go out searching for immigrants. That's never happened. The people that get arrested, who prosecutes them? The district attorney's office. District attorney is a Democrat. Have anybody complained? Any ADA called and said, hey, we got a problem. Cheektowaga Police Department is an accredited agency by New York State. Who runs the majority of New York State? Democrats. Any complaint? Did they pull their accreditation? They go through each policy, all their training. Repeatedly, they have to pass stringent guidelines. What we need from our board is not activism, but representation for all. I've worked with some of you. I know you're level-headed. I received, right before the election, a Democrat thing with all your pictures and names on it saying to vote for you guys. You know, well done. Common sense candidates. To me, common sense would be, let's call up the district whoever, a representative for ICE or the government, and say, let's have a meeting. Here are our concerns. Instead of a knee-jerk reaction to neuter our police department further, to call them Nazis and fascists and racists and everything else. How far do you want to go before these people say, I had enough. I'm not doing anything? It's very close. It's very close. We passed resolutions last year to modify their contract, MOUs, in a hope of retention because nobody wants to be cops. You're going backwards. Everybody says, let's talk about it, but if you don't say what I want you to say, I'm going to shout you down till you walk away. That's not democracy. The Cheektowaga Police Department is a well-trained, active police department, always has been. These other agencies, ATF, DEA, FBI, we work very closely with them. God forbid there's an active shooter. I was in command of an active shooter incident. Luckily, it was very minor, if you can call it that. It's chaotic. You need assistance. You need specific assistance. These other agencies, when you tell them we're not helping you, they're not going to help us. Lastly, I believe, I know crowd control. I know this. I don't know much. I know law enforcement. These two people in Minneapolis would be alive today if the local police would have done their jobs and came out and did crowd control. No question about it. No question about it. All you have to do is just stay back. The police department, our police department, doesn't have time to go and look for, if they did, they would have spent all their time at the Dingens Hotel a couple years ago with a big paddy wagon or a bus.
Tone, that's 3 minutes.
That's fine. I appreciate you guys. I just don't do a knee-jerk reaction. That's all I'm asking.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Bitterman.
Supervisor Nowak and members of the board, I am back and I am invoking my ADA rights for my COPD. Please pause the clock between my sentences. I am here because you are still hiding behind the Lexi law policies that imports international occupation tactics to our streets. Where do these tactics come from? Every year, police leaders travel to Israel to study with their military. They learn how to treat the community like an occupied population. When they bring these tactics home to Cheektowaga, to make it legal, you pay a private equity firm in Chicago called GTCR to write your rules. You have outsourced our Constitution to global investors who profit from the maximum discertain and racial profiling. Your Lexi Pro manual is a failure. Last June, your officers detained Augusto Diaz, a man born in the Bronx, at Walmart on Walden because his hair and his accent. Your officers didn't see a neighbor, they saw a suspect. They ignored his rights and called Border Patrol on an American citizen. They took him to headquarters and charged him with lying just because they didn't believe the Bronx man could be a citizen. If your Lexi law can't protect a man from the Bronx, it can't protect anyone in this town. Governor Hochul's Local Crimes Act is moving to make these rogue partnerships illegal. Why are you the last holdouts in Erie County? Stop taking orders from Chicago investors and foreign training manuals. We want the town ordinance that says no warrants, no ICE. Protect your neighbors or we will find leaders who will. I'll see you at the next meeting.
Our next speaker is William Bitterman.
I was going to finish her speech. she couldn't. But in response to those, the ICE or the DHS statistic that the gentleman brought up earlier, only 14% of those people were actually charged with any violent crimes. He was saying everybody's violent, the earlier man that was speaking. So I just wanted to bring that up. So that's 14%. And just so you know, the other side, that would be 86% that have done nothing, yet they're still being targeted. That's all I got to say. Thanks, guys.
Next speaker is Brenda Shaw.
So one thing that's been in the news this week, a lot coming out of the detention centers or the warehouses or whatever you want to call them, is there's a lot of children in there. There are children who are missing school. They're not getting health care. They're not getting fed properly. Another thing that's coming out of those centers is diseases. There's measles outbreaks, there's tuberculosis, there's COVID, and people are not getting health care correctly in these facilities. And they're all packed in, and diseases are spreading. 81 years ago, probably this month, Anne Frank died in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany of typhoid fever. She did not make it to the gas chambers. She died of a communicable disease that she picked up in the concentration camp. So that's this week in what part of history is repeating itself now? That's where we are, and that's what we're up against. And if you're not against this, then I guess you've got your answer to the grade school civics question or social studies question of, what would you have done if Anne Frank was your neighbor? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gary Borick.
Alex Preddy, Renee Good, they'd be alive if they weren't murdered. Not because the crowd wasn't held back, because they were murdered by ICE agents, not Minneapolis police, ICE agents. This resolution isn't directed at our police officers. This resolution simply says we're going to abide by New York state law. That's all it says. Those who don't like New York state law, move, go to Texas, where Lexipol comes from. You need to revise those Lexipol policies. First of all we're doing is renting them. They're not even ours. We're paying annual. How much do we pay for them? Anybody up here know? I didn't have a chance to look it up, but I'm sure we can find out. We go through the budget. We're just renting those policies by somebody in Texas. I want to read something to you. They are a bad lot, said an old railroad man, stealing everything they can, lay their hands on. The women are worse than the men. If they keep on increasing, there won't be anything else but them in Buffalo. Buffalo Evening News. I'll give you the date, May 29th, 1887. You know who the them are? What most of us are, Polacks. That was the title of the article, Polack Town. What if they had all been sent back then? None of us would be here. Tiffany would be. She's not an immigrant. Her ancestors weren't immigrants. They didn't choose to come. I took the figures from DHS for fiscal year 2025, because that's all they had posted for total. For the Batavia Detention Center, 82% of the detainees in the detention center in fiscal year 2025, no criminal record. Not a violation, not a traffic, nothing. No criminal record. That means that they're sweeping through cities and towns in New York, taking people to that detention center, and most of them, the great majority of them, have no criminal record. I don't know any way a police officer can determine that someone crossed the border illegally. And remember, if you cross the border illegally and you apply for asylum status and you get asylum status, not asylum status, but just the ability to apply for asylum status, you get asylum seeker status. From that point on, you're here legally, even though in fact you crossed illegally. What DHS is doing is taking those people and saying, we don't care about your asylum seeker status. We're going to prosecute you for crossing illegally. And they send them off to another country before any lawyer can intervene and stop them. We shouldn't be participating in that. This is not directed at our police. This takes it off the back of our police. Let them do the other things in this town we want them to do. They don't have enough time to pay attention to all the crime we already have. They have no need to be standing around.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dave Christie.
Hi, I'm also here to speak about the ICE resolution. So on March 21st of 2025, Department of Homeland Security eliminated
I'm sorry, can you pull the mic down?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
March 21st of last year, DHS eliminated the Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, the Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman, and the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman. Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office investigates claims of civil rights and liberties violations in DHS activities, including with respect to immigration enforcement and discrimination. The Office of Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman helps members of the public resolve problems with immigration benefits, and the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman conducts oversight on conditions at immigrant detention centers. To this day, there has been no replacement of these offices put in place by DHS. Related to that, in January of this year, Representative John Ossoff released a report finding over 1,000 credible reports of human rights violations by DHS. These include 44 credible reports of family separation, including mothers reportedly separated from their breastfeeding infants, in one case for several months, 206 credible reports of medical neglect, 26 credible reports of mistreatment of pregnant women, 40 credible reports of mistreatment of children, 88 credible reports of physical and sexual abuse, 139 credible reports of denial of adequate food and water, including cases that reportedly led to malnutrition and dehydration, 161 credible reports of denial of access to attorneys, including multiple reports from detainees that ICE officials had lied to them and told them they are not allowed to meet with their attorneys, 181 credible reports of overcrowding and unsanitary conditions, 50 credible reports of exposure to extreme temperatures, and 102 credible reports of imposed sleep deprivation. In 2025, there were 32 deaths in ICE custody. The yearly average is 18. 32 is almost double. As it's already been noted, roughly 75 to 80% of this roughly 68,000 detainees held by ICE have no criminal convictions. I mention this because there's no oversight anymore. There may have been a time when these arguments about cooperating with ICE and, turning people over who have overstayed their status or whatever. Like, there may have been a time where that was okay and allowable because there were safeguards in place to protect their civil rights, protect their civil liberties, protect their legal rights. The current administration has removed all those rights. We're not playing by the same rules anymore. An example of this, in December, Geraldo Lunas Campos was killed in ICE custody. The autopsy ruled his death a homicide at the hands of ICE. Now, that happened in Texas. I bring this up because he was arrested in Rochester, not Texas. He was arrested in Rochester, flown to a detention center in Texas. Now, his family is filing a wrongful death lawsuit. Fortunately for the city of Rochester, they are not named in that lawsuit, but the federal government is. My thing is, why are we allowing our police department to, even in the slightest, most incidental way, contribute to funneling our neighbors into this system with no oversight and, a demonstrable record
That
of.
is 3 minutes. Does this board wish to extend or? 3 minutes. That's 3
Awesome.
minutes, Dave.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Jessica Greenwald.
God, I kind of wish I could just give Gary my 3 minutes because he was cooking up here. I'm also going to support Resolution 2026-92. I also want to support the referendums suggested. I think that we definitely need some civilian oversight as to what's going on with our police department and our policy. Our reform and reinvention plan very specifically talks about community input, increased diversity, all of these things that we're talking about today that are being problems where we're concerned about racial profiling. I mean, whatever happened to the presumption of being innocent until proven guilty? Our policy says that something as insignificant as an accent can have our police turn you over to ICE, and then our own police in interviews said, I have no idea what happens to these people afterwards. Well, we do know what happens to these people afterwards. Somebody just spit out a bunch of statistics of the awful things that happen to these people that, as some other people have pointed out, DHS says largely 82% plus non-criminal, and that's by their own data. So I don't understand. First off, Brian Pilarski, I've been emailing you for over a month. I've been in every single board meeting talking about this stuff. I had your sign on my lawn. I phone banked for you. I haven't heard a thing from you about this. The Republicans, I'm not going to vote for you. I get it. It makes sense for you to ignore me. What the hell, dude? You're ignoring the people who support you, who want you guys to succeed. That's not acceptable, okay? I understand people are busy. It's been over a month. This is important stuff, all right? This is stuff that affects our town. This is not a knee-jerk reaction to anything. We're asking you guys to follow the Attorney General's guidance. So everybody needs to stop acting like this is some crazy radical thing. And again, our police, if you guys are doing nothing wrong, form a bond with the community, form an oversight board, and rebuild that trust that you guys have shattered from your actions. And largely, I want to say, I don't think it's the police's fault. I think it's the policy. And I've talked about this at length. I think if we want good officers, we need good policy, and we need people to be held to a standard and be held accountable. And that's it. Thanks.
I just wanted for all those that sent in emails, there is no public hearing today on the tax cap or on ICE. So I thought at this point I would at least share that names of people who submitted information prior to the last meeting were in the minutes. Since then, for tax cap information, we have received in total 71 emails. I have shared whatever was received by our office with council members, including 8 emails that we received regarding, 10 emails that we received regarding ICE, 2 in support and 8 against. So I just wanted to put it on the record that all information shared by our office has been provided to the town board members.
I'm sorry, Town Clerk, could you just clarify support of ICE, support of the resolution, or support of ICE?
2 in support of working with ICE and 8 against.
On to board discussion. Next up is old business. Do we have any old business from the board this evening? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we're going to move on to new business. I had one item and then I'll pass it on to the rest of the board. I was at the, along with Councilmember Elderkin, we were at the Fire Commissioners meeting last evening. There was a presentation on the Asher active shooting there. It pertains to one of our resolutions this evening. It got into Craig can explain it better than I. I don't want to butcher this. If you want to take a quick 30-second, 60-second overview of what that was, just so the whole board understands.
All right. The resolution that's on the night is actually for our contract with the Stop the Bleed Coalition, which is a Department of Defense program based on lessons learned in the global war on terror and stopping the dying, essentially. It's going to allow us to give community outreach training and training to our town employees in Stop the Bleed, use of tourniquets, chest shields, and other massive hemorrhage stopping measures. As for the presentation last night, at the last meeting, we approved a resolution accepting $40,000 from the county to help support active shooter training for our firefighters and police officers in the town here, and that'll be moving forward. We've made a bunch of purchases so far, and we will be there'll be more information forthcoming on that as well.
I think it's a great initiative, and if anybody on the board has questions about it, reach out to Craig. He's best suited to answer those questions. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I had for new business. Any other new business from council members? Councilmember Nowicki.
I don't know if this is necessarily new business or just setting something up after the meeting, but given new information I've seen regarding our one item under suspension of rules after the meeting, I'd be interested in holding an executive session just to talk about that a little more in detail. I think it would be good for the board and good for the town. If there's entertainment for that, great. If not, so be it. That's all.
Time you make a motion, whether it's regarding attorney-client privilege or discipline of a particular person. If there's support for that, we'll work from there. Any other council members on new business? Okay, that'll move us on to the consent agenda. A consent agenda is contained in this meeting. The consent agenda is designed to assist making the meeting shorter and more efficient. Items left in the consent agenda may not be discussed when the consent agenda comes before the town board. If any council member wishes to discuss a consent agenda item, please tell me now and I will remove that item from the consent agenda and it will be added as a separate resolution item. I've got two so far. That would be 2026-92 and 2026-94. Are there any others from council members?
2026-88. 2026-96. 2026-98.
'I have 5 total so far, 88, 92, 94, 96, 98. That as a confirmation that that's all we're pulling. We're moving on to the meeting agenda. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Brian Pilarski. Councilmember Pilarski, all in favor?
Aye.
I have one item that was left on the table. That is Resolution 2026-37. Is there an interest in moving Resolution 2026-37 to the table for consideration? If not, this resolution will fall off the table and it would need to be read at a later date. That resolution will stay. We will move on to our consent agenda. We are moving on to the consent agenda. We have consent agenda items, resolutions 2026-78 through 108. We are going to recognize that resolutions 88, 92, 94, 96, and 98 have been removed and will be taken as separate resolution items. We are including in that consent agenda the meeting minutes from the last meeting of January 27th. I need a roll call vote to approve the rest of the items on the consent agenda. Councilmember Bukowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Elderkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Nowicki?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Nowak?
Yes.
Rest of the consent agenda items have been approved. We are going to move on to the separate resolution items. We will start with 2026-88. Sponsored by Councilmember Lewis, seconded by Councilmember Elderkin. There is a need to increase fees for the use of Lions Pavilion Mega Shelter at the Cheektowaga Town Park to cover costs associated with its use, maintenance, and personnel costs. Effective for 2026, the Lions Pavilion Mega Shelter permit fee will be $400 for a resident or non-resident and $600 for a business corporation or 501c3 in conjunction with the filing and approval of a special event permit.
This is the Lions Pavilion on the question.
I have a question.
Councilmember?
Currently, right now, the Lions Pavilion is $250 for resident and $500 for non-resident. So where or how did $400 for both come up? I mean, I would just think that non-residents should be paying more. I mean, we were talking about increasing our revenue and keep increasing our fees, and all the more residents should not take the brunt of it. Non-residents should be paying more. And why would we decrease it for a non-resident when it's $500 right now? I mean, I can see upping it for $600 for businesses. I could even see going up to $1,000 for businesses, but I would just like to know why $400 for both.
I know this resolution, I talked with the town clerk about it. I had asked that it be introduced at these dollar amounts. On the non-resident side, I think it came down to how few people we had applying for the shelter under the non-resident. That the idea was that if we did it at the same, that you usually, with the non-resident, someone would find somebody that lives in town to help them book the shelter, that we had a insignificant number of non-resident rentals. So that just factored into simplifying administration for that. I have no problem putting the non-resident up to the $600 level personally, but that was kind of what went in, not kind of what went into it. That is what went into my recommendation of putting this before the board, but I'm open to amendments.
I mean, I'm all for increasing, but I just think the non-resident should not, or it shouldn't have decreased for a non-resident. You know.
I get exactly where you're coming from. So again, if we put the non-resident for the shelter rental at the $600 fee, that'd be one way of solving that issue. Another way could be just creating a different fee entirely. But since we have the $600 already, I think that might be the simplest to put them in a second category instead of having three of them, if that's the board's desire.
By the non-resident with the business.
Have a separate fee for businesses to begin with? Because my thought process on this is if we didn't, what's stopping somebody, let's say it just stayed the way it was, $400 for a resident and $400 for non-resident, or $400 for resident, $600 for non-resident. Okay, yeah. Quick first, if you can speak to the item.
So originally, the way it's set up is that it's $250 for a resident, and it is, what did you say? The non-resident fee was more. What is happening is that the the pavilion is being rented out by businesses or other people, and they're having somebody in the group rent it out that is in Cheektowaga. So the companies are exempting themselves from paying the higher fee by having a resident rent the shelter. So what we are trying to accomplish is that usually if a resident is renting it, they're doing it for a graduation party, they're doing it for a family reunion, things like that. The businesses, the corporations, 501c3s, we ask them, usually they are in conjunction with what we call our special event permit, where they are required to have more, they're required to have insurance, and they're required to have other things on the table in order to rent the shelter because of the event that they're handling. So we're trying to separate a basic graduation, family reunion versus an actual event like the 5K runs and businesses that are renting it for fundraisers, things like that. So we're trying to separate the two that way. The increase in fees was a discussion between the supervisor and and Mark Mez, in charge of the parks and facilities, that the fees were not covering the cost of having somebody there who has to oversee it when there are special events and stuff in the park. And so those increased rates will help cover at least the cost of that stuff. So that's where the resident, non-resident, and I will tell you, we had one non-resident actually apply for a specific event.
I couldn't remember the exact number. I didn't know it was literally one.
Yeah.
My concern on this is, so is there a difference between small business and regular business? Because if I'm a small business owner and I've only got 4 employees and I want to rent a shelter for a family outing for my 4 employees and that, versus Steve here who owns Moog and he's doing a corporate picnic and 600 show up, are we treated the same as businesses versus I'm a resident, I'm just going to put it in my name now and, you know, my 60 people show up versus 600? Like, how do we decipher that, the difference, or if it's a business event or if it's a, you know, graduation commercial? Is that spelled out right on the application to where if they put in the false information, there's, you know, additional fees added onto it after the fact, or how is that all addressed?
Last year, did we have an event? I don't think it happened, but they had advertising everywhere. They're giving away a car. And I don't know what they paid for a rental, but I don't know if, is that the same or was that the same, Kim? Yeah.
Now, is that considered a business or a community group that, let's say they're not even a nonprofit, they don't fall under a community or nonprofit or business, and it's just a community group. Let's say it's William Street Taxpayers.
That particular group last year, I get what you're getting at, but that particular group was a 501c3, so they'd get hit with the $600 if they wanted to go under the large shelter. But
they also had like expecting 1,000 people.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, is there things on the application to help catch this stuff and red flag it during the review process before it happens? And then is there additional language in there to say, hey, you will be responsible if any of this is false or whatever?
Looking at it right now, and I will say, maybe it's just me, to find where you even apply for that. I mean, I don't know how many applicants we had. Do you have like a rough idea from last year, clerk? Sorry to put you on the spot, but.
I did just look it up, and I apologize that I don't remember exactly how many it was, but the one caveat with renting the mega shelter is a special event permit. If you look at the park shelter website at the bottom, it says if you want, because it talks about now renting from Town Park or Lawson Park. The fee is $75. It's a minimum 50 people or max 50 people that you can have at that shelter. If you have more than 50 people, then you need to rent more than one shelter. Or so the people that are looking at the mega shelter are usually looking for larger groups, 200-300 people, things like that. The special event permit is what is triggered when they tell us what they're doing at the location. Now, the event that you brought up from last year, they didn't disclose any of that It just happened to be that Supervisor Noack went to an event and found out about it, and that's what brought up that we knew about all the other stuff that was going on. Had he not gone to that, we would not have known what was going to happen.
With that, what's the board's pleasure on the fees? Would we like to move that non-resident section over to the $600? All right, I see a proper motion for an amendment. I'll second that. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. I'll pass it back to the clerk for a vote on the amended item.
So I just want to clarify, we're doing $400 for a resident and $600 for non-resident and $600 for a business corporation or 501c3 in conjunction with that filing of the approved special event permit, correct?
Correct.
Now we are voting, you voted on the amendment, all were in favor. We're voting on the resolution 2026-88 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 2026-92, sponsored by council members Nowicki, Elderkin, and Lewis. The extent federal civil immigration enforcement and detention practices bring into question and threaten to undermine community trust, harm vulnerable populations, and deter residents from engaging with town personnel and seeking town services. Civil immigration enforcement is solely the responsibility of the federal government, and the use of town resources for civil immigration purposes result in the use of time, energy, assets, and other town resources for civil immigration enforcement, taking away from critical local government services. The town of Cheektowaga is committed to upholding the safety, dignity, and legal protections of all residents, regardless of immigration status or country of origin, and ensuring that the town government is not used to target to or intimidate residents. The town of Cheektowaga Police Department shall continue to prioritize public safety, criminal law enforcement, and community protection in accordance with its established patrol, investigative, and enforcement policies. Consistent with New York State law and existing CPD policy, officers shall not enforce civil immigration status except where required by a judicial warrant, court order, or verified criminal warrant. The town of Cheektowaga shall not authorize, fund, or permit the use of town personnel resources, facilities, equipment, or information for the purpose of assisting in civil immigration enforcement, including enforcement actions initiated or requested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, except where required by a judicial warrant, court order, or applicable law, unless legally mandated or in the interest of public safety.
Right, on the question, I'm going to open it up to the sponsors first.
I'd be happy to go first.
Councilmember Nowicki, the floor is yours.
So I prepared a statement because it's no surprise that this is coming up. So this is my 2 cents on this resolution. First things first, research shows time and time again that limited cooperation policies do not increase crime in communities. They in fact can improve public safety by helping build trust in the community, by allowing people to engage and work with local authorities. Next, town staff, buildings, and equipment are paid for by local taxpayers. That's all of us in this room and others. These resources are meant to support local priorities. Local tax dollars are not meant to fund federal operations like immigration enforcement. Most importantly of all, Cheektowaga Police are local law enforcement. Civil immigration enforcement is the responsibility of the federal government. Local governments are not required to enforce federal civil immigration laws, and courts have repeatedly ruled so. New York state law and current Cheektowaga Department policy already limit officers from engaging in civil immigration enforcement. This does not, and I repeat, does not stop CPD from enforcing criminal laws or working with federal authorities when public safety is involved. It simply ensures that cooperation happens when it's legally required, such as a judicial warrant or criminal activity. We are already facing possible litigation from possibly overstepping our authority. Regardless of where you stand on this issue, if the town ends up being at fault, it's all of us that get to pay for it. In 2014, ICE itself released a memo advising local police departments of doing similar things to avoid these possible problems. I also want it clearly stated for the record, nothing in this resolution comments on Cheektowaga Police Department officers, their conduct, or their performance. This resolution in no way is a judgment of our police department. We are putting this policy in place because of our responsibility to protect both the residents of this town and the town's financial well-being.
Comment from the other sponsors before we open it up to the full board?
Sure, I'll make some responses to some comments that were made today. With this resolution, first of all, no one was calling our police Nazi, fascist, or racist up here. This is not debating ICE itself. Yes, and my professional opinion would be if ICE had a quarter of the training that our Cheektowaga Police Department has, these people would not be dead. It is not our responsibility, again, to enforce civil immigration. And this was not a knee-jerk reaction. This was the opposite of a knee-jerk reaction. We spent a lot of time with this, a lot of conversations. I met with Chief Coons myself, asked him, do you have a problem with anything in this resolution? His response was no. Okay, I'm up here to work with people. I want to work and move things forward. I told him myself, I think this is a start. Can we go further? And we are going to work together. I'm not up here to make resolutions that are going to get overturned, that can't be enforced, that our town lawyer is going to say this isn't legal. I want things done properly and not a knee-jerk reaction. That's why conversation and collaboration have to happen. I think everything in this is reaffirming policy that is good and making it clear we are not enforcing civil immigration.
The rest of the board, any?
Yeah, so I just want to echo some of the sentiments that our town board has expressed. Typically, I sit here because I need to understand before I respond. I don't just want to respond just to respond. It's important to understand that what we did here, again, as Monica stated, is we went back, we revisited, we looked at New York, the Attorney General's policies that she set forth too. We do understand that we cannot write policy through resolution. We just can't do that. So what we want to do is affirm and reaffirm what the Cheektowaga Police Department has already put in place, and also to understand that they are doing a phenomenal job with our constituents, making sure that their hands aren't tied. We don't want to tie our chief's hands when it comes to ensuring that responsibilities of the police department is done. This right here is a principal resolution. It's not a policy. We can't write policy through resolution. However, this is a first step. And I am grateful to be able to sit here and say that, this is a federal issue. And we need to ensure that, the community remains safe. It's safety. And, I commend what Gary Borek was mentioning about, making sure that we do, the right thing. And I think this is a first step for us to do the right thing. So thank you.
Larski?
All right. So coming right out of the gate to make it clear, I'm anti-ICE. Do not believe in anything they've done. Gary, you are absolutely right. They murdered those two. So that's my comment on ICE piece of it all. My issue with the resolution here, though, I think the first step would be doing exactly what Sandy said, is having this police advisory board, going back to the 2020, 2022, when that resolution was put through. Whether it's a police advisory board, the police reform reinvention committee, that's what it was called. I've heard many of the speakers come up saying, hey, this is good, this is a good start, but I would add, or I would amend, or I would, include. So what we're going to keep doing is going back and making these resolution changes and amendments based off of this one. So this is going to be an ongoing topic. That's why I think the very first step should have been create this committee or advisory board. And I'm not saying stack the deck. Let's add Dan Collender, who doesn't agree with it. Let's add Jessica, who fully supports it. I think that's a nice start there. Two, of each side of there. Add 2 police officers, have our chief there, have lawyers there, have other community, other stakeholders involved in this, not this board right here. I think, and you're absolutely right, we're not rewriting a policy right here. But once we do start writing policy for our police, that's a slippery slope. This resolution, it goes through and it says things like, it reinforces, like you said, everything that our police officers are doing. They're upholding the safety, dignity, and legal protections of our residents. They're going to continue to prioritize public safety, criminal law, and community protection. but it's where the resolves come in that I see some hang up here where it says that they're already, doing this stuff with the patrol investigation and enforcement policy. But then our issue really is the policy 414, which there is some wording in there that I fully disagree with. Just because someone, doesn't speak English, that triggers me, and that's a red flag. That is wrong. I think that piece needs to be looked at. But if we're going to change something and not compare policies on how whatever we change in one policy is going to affect the other policy, we could have unintentional consequences. We're not sending our resources out. We're not spending any town money, resources, or anything enforcing immigration. I mean, we were just told that from one of our council members who were speaking, saying that our police are already following New York State, and the policy already says that we're not doing civil immigration activity. So if we're already not doing it, I don't see what the issue is with our officers with something like this, with this resolution. The big issue is a federal level. We need to address this with the federal level. Now, if our police overstep the line and they're calling ICE or Border Patrol and say, hey, I've got someone, brown skin or black skin, or they speak a different language or not speaking English, that's a huge problem. All right. And we deal with that. But they're not even flirting with the line there on that. And that's why I think going this route is it's a little risky. I'd like to have a committee on it and then address the policies in place of it all. I don't know all the police policies, nor do I expect any one of us or anybody out there to know all the policies on it. But I think by us just going in this, making this ruling or changing this, it could create unintentional consequences on it all. And that's where I stand on it all. Now, if we're going to address the issues of saying, hey, in this policy, this opens us up for litigation, then that's what we got to do is address that. But I think us changing policy up here, it's a slippery slope.
Other board members?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I was a little surprised when I saw this, and then Monica, you mentioned how you conferred, you talked, you met with the chief and everything. But let me just step back a minute. On the very first meeting, I said that I didn't care what letter was after our names. We were all elected, and we were all elected to work for the people in this town. So with that, I was hoping for more of a communication between all of us. You're putting something out like this, and you didn't even send an email out to get our opinion on anything. At least not to me, I didn't get anything. I really think this should be tabled. I think we should all sit together, have a meeting, have the PD meeting, address like what the council member Pulaski mentioned about getting that committee together. This is something that really needs to be discussed and not just thrown a resolution like this. And I just really am a little upset on not being included on this, if we're supposed to all be working together.
For the audience, next time, going to have to ask folks to go. All right. Further discussion, Councilman Pulaski?
Really makes me concerned about this resolution is really the last line, that except where required by judicial warrant, court order, or applicable law, and unless legally mandated, that we're not going to work with ICE. I mean, there are many times where Border Patrol has come in to assist our police department, the mall fights being a perfect example. So when we stop working with other law enforcement agencies, those law enforcement agencies are going to stop working with us. That is another unintentional consequence. Whether it's Border Patrol and then the word gets out, okay, Lancaster's not going to come over and help us, West Seneca's not going to help us, Amherst isn't going to help us, Buffalo PD is not going to help us. We're going to create bigger problems on that. Now, if we say, hey, we're not working with them with, immigration issues, then yes, I agree with that. But just not to work with them at all, that can create other issues as well. And that's why I think discussion needs to happen. Maybe the chief comes back and says, yeah, you know what, that's not going to be an issue, and it's not. But we have not had those discussions. We've all had our sidebar conversations with him, but nothing as a group or as stakeholders in a community with them. And that's where I think that's the starting point.
I'll just address, for the purpose of assisting in civil immigration enforcement, including enforcement actions initiated or requested by U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement. I'll skip, but it ends with in the interest of public safety. So I don't think, and I'm fine with tabling it. I'm fine with discussing. I'm not forcing a vote and through, and definitely more discussion. But I think that's why the wording was put in that way. Just
some, and then I'd fire back with the question, and this is why a committee should be, is public safety. Is it public safety for the residents, or is it public safety also for these officers? Let's say they come in and they're, dealing with an immigration case, and our police have nothing to do. They're not even there. It's at Walmart or whatever. And then there's a call that, the resident is kicking the snot out of these ICE agents. Do we just let that happen, or do our police do their job and also enforce public safety for all?
They're shooting citizens in the street. They're shooting citizens in the street, dude. And you're worried about the ICE agents? What about our
No, I'm worried about our police officers getting handcuffed and having an issue for not doing their jobs.
The more you delay, the more you table, the more people are gonna die.
I will respond with, the policy is for assistance from ICE is contact the supervisor in Cheektowaga Police, and it's at their discretion. And nothing in here is changing that policy. We're not changing policy.
We're not limiting their cooperation with other government federal agencies who aren't putting people in camps and having them die. So I think there's a pretty clear-cut line on why there's a certain aspect we're not collaborating with and why the rest of them have full reign to collaborate as they see fit, even within ICE, Customs Border Patrol itself. Again, this is explicitly, specifically only to deal with civil immigration enforcement. That's it.
Comment, if I could. In one of the resolves here, it says, or verified criminal warrant. Now, if you do have individuals who are not here legally or applying to become a legal citizen, that's okay. But what if they are committing crimes previously before coming here? We don't have record of what they've done previously. And then they're out free. And we have a situation where we could become liable, or there have been situations where we let somebody go and they commit a crime and really harming somebody, one of your family members. You have no idea what could happen. So yes, they
could even be a member of the Cheektowaga Town Board.
Can I finish? Or are you going to treat me like the residents that you email rude remarks to? But does the council member? Okay, thank you. So there are a million what if scenarios. Obviously anything could happen, but just because I don't agree with you on one thing doesn't mean we can't have a conversation about it. I'm not going to, if you say you don't like, black cars, I'm not going to say you're an idiot. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's act like adults and have a conversation about it. I've said it before and I'll say it every time. I'll sit here until midnight and have conversations with people. But like a handful of council members said up here, we're not making these decisions. These are out of our hands. Our police officers are not going around rounding up people. These are calls for shoplifting. Yes, you're not violent if you're shoplifting, but is that a crime? Go do that in another country and see what happens. You can't just commit crimes because you think it's a petty crime. I understand that. And no, ICE murdering people, that's not okay. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm on the record saying that. But you have to have some decorum and common sense to say, okay, let's meet in the middle and find some sort of common ground, because just arguing back and forth and saying you're wrong because I don't agree with you, we're never going to get anywhere. I think everybody up here can agree with it, and I hope that most of the people in the audience agree with that or listening. There's not a perfect solution or answer to this. And yes, I appreciate and honestly have compassion for people that, take this serious. I understand, these may be your neighbors, and there are neighbors, on my street that I have no idea who they are, but I'd like to advocate for them, but if they're committing crimes or even just stealing from wherever it may be, that doesn't make it okay. Let's try and help them. But we don't have any say over what the federal government is doing. And let me backtrack on that. There's not a point where our police department are the Minneapolis Police Department. They are accredited. They go through very stringent trainings, and it was brought up recently about, they had to go through another training. See, they don't know what they're doing. I take that as a compliment. They're willing to continue the training to learn from mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but if you are actively looking to improve, to have better relations and not create lawsuits from unjust actions, I think that's a good thing. That's all I have.
Council member comments? So there were a couple of us on this town board in 2023. You were the other one, Councilman Pilarski. You guys were private citizens just about to join the board when we had New York City sending asylum seekers to Cheektowaga in 3 different hotels. And
know it very well.
In the course of that time, we had some issues in those hotels. And yeah, well, DSS, I'm going to get to that. Don't steal my thunder, Wally. So at the time, we had a handful of folks that did some very bad things, both in the hotels and in the community, to shoplifting, to assault, domestics, things like that. Yeah.
Rape.
And you can name somewhere around 20 people, but there were 600 people. So it was a small share of a large group that came in. And those of us that were on the board at the time knew about this program and folks going back to New York City and all of that. Part of the issue is that the other government that was involved, New York City, and the company, DocGo, the nonprofit contractor, weren't giving us the information really we needed to. Our local police department, our local government, with the aid of previous council and other folks, we had to work overtime to get accurate information about what was going on there because folks on the other side of the ledger were covering things up and making it harder for the town of Cheektowaga to do its part. And that's what was happening at the time. And back when we had that issue, ICE didn't have 22,000 people and sending them to places like Minneapolis and all that. You fast forward to today and you think about the parallels between the situation with asylum seekers in these hotels who had legal status but were in a place they shouldn't have been, and working with agencies that weren't straight up about what was going on and covering things up. Speakers for the last 3 meetings have come here and talked more broadly, not just on this issue, but what the federal administration is doing. The head of Homeland Security goes on television and just lies. She just lies. We have no idea if the statistics are accurate. We have no idea how many people are dying in these facilities. We see stuff with our own eyes, and folks that are involved in DHS just lie to us. So what's that?
How do you know these right?
I have eyes. I'm sorry. It's to say that, oh, he had a gun. No, it was a phone. You know, but
I believe he's telling the truth.
But
I got my eyes too.
You're an audience member.
Can we all participate? That man was executed.
Guys, there's a reason for this resolution, and we're on the other side of the ledger is a federal agency that I don't think this town can trust or should trust. Does it mean we have to pass this thing tonight? No. Does it mean we have to do only this? Absolutely not. But, in my conversations with the chief and folks in the community and all that, I'm finding that we're a lot closer than we are apart on this stuff. It's just we have a different lens. There's a public safety outlook on it. There's a civil liberty side. I'm partial to the civil liberty side because I haven't gone through the academy and been on the street and had to be wired that everyone's a suspect. I've seen body cam video within one of these hotels of somebody charging at one of our officers. So I'm trying to appreciate my lens on this, the public safety perspective, and I think everybody's trying to understand that, whether they're in law enforcement, whether they're on the legal side of things, a first responder of some sorts. But the reason this is here isn't just a political statement, and it isn't to micromanage the police department or say the town board should take over the policy making. it's to rein in something that a lot of people think is bad. And even people, whether they're up here or in the audience, that say, we need to let law enforcement do their job, whether it's ICE or other folks, they concede that there's civil liberties concerns with one or both of the major publicized killings or some of these other issues. There's a lot of nuance in this issue. But I'm in favor of this resolution tonight, and I think our approach as a town board should be to work within the police department policy and to look what's happening at the state level, the local cops, I forget exactly the name, that has to do with 287G agreements. We don't have one of those here. So if that state law passes saying no more 287Gs, it has no impact on Cheektowaga, because we're not like Niagara County housing migrants in detention facilities. And they stopped that, by the way. The Niagara Sheriff stopped that. A lot of the stuff that is of concern that's happening in other places is not happening here. But when it comes to making policy on this stuff, my approach is like any other department in town. We ask the folks from the sewer department to come up to ask them about the minutia within departmental policy. We ask the parks director to come up about the minutia and the details. That's why I go to the police chief to ask about this stuff. We have spirited discussions. He's been great to me in talking through all of this stuff. But whether it's the police department or the parks or the sewer department, the buck stops with the town board. And to a certain degree, we have to give a sign off on these things. And we do have some responsibility in policy making. But I'm not going to be the one to tell somebody that has gone through extensive training and has more than 2 decades of experience in our local police department and all of the other things, I know best. It's just you give guiding principles. I think Councilmember Lewis said it well about, listening to people and taking that in and offering direction, general guidance, rather than specific details. But there are some things where we get into specific details, and I'm starting to get long-winded here, but I think we have to limit in a intelligent, precision way cooperation between the town and an agency that just goes on television and lies all the time. We can't trust them. So that's all I have to say.
I'd like to call the question with a roll call vote.
Motion to table.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Was that official motion? I wasn't sure if that was an official motion or just a comment.
Okay, that was mentioned earlier in discussion. I'm going to recognize that as a motion to table. Is there a second among board members?
I'll second.
Okay, Adam's tabled.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bukowski to table the resolution, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. We are moving on to Resolution 2026-94, sponsored by Councilmember Bukowski, seconded by Councilmember Lewis. Internet is a valuable tool for communication on a professional and as well as a personal level. The town of Cheektowaga desires to provide guidance for employee use of social media tools and permits users to share information with others in the contemporaneous manner. The town desires to establish policies providing for such interaction and communication in a responsible manner in the fast-changing landscape of the internet. The town has an overriding interest and expectation in deciding what is communicated on behalf of the town, as well as personally when referencing the town elected officials of the town and employees and board members of the town. The town finds that the establishment of a social media policy is reasonable, necessary, and proper for good government. The Cheektowaga Town Board adopts the proposed Town of Cheektowaga social media policy.
On the question, this is actually an item that I wanted to pull out. There was some discussion about a social media policy a little while back, and we got to a draft, but we never got to the point of being passed by the board. That was after the town board, a couple years back, again, old man yells at clouds is up there. The two of us were here, where we passed the policy, right, Brian? And then council member, I'm sorry. And then we had to rescind that because of considerations there. There's a lot of good with this one compared to the other two, but I'm still digesting it, quite frankly. And I would in talking with a few board members, I think there's some interest in tabling this and taking this up in 2 weeks. I don't know if other board members want to discuss it any further, but it's a 5-pager. I know I called Councilmember Thompson on it, and we started batting back and forth generalities. We didn't get an opportunity to get into the details, but I'd like to table this item.
I'll second it.
Okay?
By the supervisor to table the item, seconded by Councilmember Bukowski. Resolution 2026-96 is sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Elderkin. The town board hereby creates the position of Assistant Director of Information Technology and Records Management pursuant to civil service laws and rules effective February 11th, 2026.
Okay, on the question? Yes.
Oh, I'm happy to see this resolution going through, and I just want to relate that to other departments. We talk about it all the time. I'm going to say it all the time. Succession plans. We do have a staff that have been here for many, many years across many top management positions. And the most recent that I spoke about was sanitation department. So I'd like to bring that up again and see whether it's now or, board discussion, I'd like to continue this process going forth with other departments because it's very important. And again, I've been up here, I've been through it, and I just don't want to get at that same position where we're scrambling and just trying to throw somebody in a top position in a department where we rely on heavily. Not that others aren't as important, but in that position, I think the entire town would like some stability there. So I think it's very important to have this start here, having this position filled. I think that'll be fantastic, and I look forward to having that position and them working together. So I, again, love to open discussions about doing this further with sanitation and looking at all the departments to make sure that there is a succession plan, especially for the ones that are imminent in the near future. But I am in support of this.
Any other council members?
Yeah, I just want to echo what you said, council member, about succession planning. I had an amazing opportunity to visit the building and planning department, and we talked about that too, succession planning. We don't want to wait until it's the last thing on the agenda item in order for it to be the most relevant thing on the item. So succession planning is very important, especially in different departments. So I just want to uplift that too. And shout out to Dan the Man.
And just as a follow-up on this, we're creating the title now. In the near future, we're going to be looking to fill the position. So stay tuned on that. As soon as the next meeting, the town board is likely to act on that. And then we'll actually have the pieces in line to work on that succession plan for this department here. Anyone else? All right. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And carries.
Resolution 2026-96 is carried. Resolution 2026-98, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Nowicki. Robert Brandon of Cheektowaga, New York, being and hereby is appointed to the position of Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective immediately with said term to expire on December 31st, 2030.
Question?
Question on this. The two of you that put this through, or is that just because of the committee supervisor and Councilmember Nowicki?
I believe this is because of the committee. This came out of, Nowicki and I are on planning and zoning.
Was this a discussion amongst the two of you, or?
So I can
is
answer
this-
that question. These resolutions, the 98 and 99 is still on the consent agenda. Both of these came through on the same conversation, feedback from the January zoning board meeting that among the members, Robert Brandon was recommended for chairman and that Heather Alt would step up to be the secretary. So because of that, I asked that these resolutions be introduced and that the liaisons to the planning zoning department be put on as the sponsors for it.
Still short in this, on this board?
I don't believe we are at this point. We have a chairman in Robert Brandon. Heather Alt is on the board. Ralph Miranda, Kenneth Young. Oh goodness, whoever I'm forgetting is really gonna eat my lunch tomorrow.
Linda Hammer.
Linda Hammer. There it is. So there are 5. It's a board of 5 with 5 members on it. Sorry, Linda.
I guess I'll just say the same thing that I said the last time about this, as no transparency on this, and we're just putting no disrespect to this individual or anybody else, but there's no process as far as an interview, letter of intent. It's just, this person's been here for 35 years. Let's just put them back in this position. I mean, that's,
I think
doing the same thing that we've been doing year after year.
I believe
because of-
oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Thank you.
The local law speaks to zoning board of appeals and how that's set up, and within the local law, that chairman is recommended among the members of the board, but it's ultimately on the town board to approve that item. So I think that's is a function of local law, to where the town board ultimately makes the appointment, but the recommendation typically comes from the board itself.
There's also just as much process on 99, which was not pulled. That's already passed, so we can't re-pull that, but there's really no difference between the two aside from the position they're in.
She's already on the board, zoning board.
Robert Brandon, if I'm not correct, if I'm not
They're
mistaken.
being appointed to positions that
Different
were voted
positions.
on. Correct, but these were voted on within that committee, though. So it's not like they're coming up and just saying, hey, you're secretary, you're president. This was within their committee of the planning board there to say, hey, us 5, we're going to pick you to do this and you to do that.
My apologies. So is that what happened when this individual and Linda were recommended for these positions? Or how
comes
did
from
that
the board
happen?
as a whole on that piece. Their hierarchy and who's got what positions and job titles within their committee come from them.
Gotcha. So these people that we put on this board to make those decisions, we just pick somebody out of a hat to go onto this board then? Is that how that happened? Pretty much?
I think the subject at hand is whether or not we're appointing him to the board, not how he got here.
Pretty relevant, but I understand your point. I just thought it'd be important for the crowd, people listening, to know how that happened. And of course, business as usual in Town Cheektowaga. That's all I have.
Any other comment on the resolution?
Roll call vote on that, please.
We have a roll call vote on Resolution 2026-98. Councilmember Bukowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Elderkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis? Councilmember Nowicki?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
No.
Supervisor Noack?
Yes.
Motion is carried. That's the end of our resolution items. We did have one item that was submitted late. I need a motion and a second to waive the rules to include Resolution 2026-109 to the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2026-109, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. Robert Hupkowitz being and hereby is terminated from his position as a motor equipment operator A in the Highway Department, effective at the close of business on February 6, 2026.
On the question, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries.
Our resolution items. Departmental communications include minutes from the Traffic Safety Commission from January 20th and minutes from the Environmental Advisory Committee of January 28th. General communications included 1 summons and complaint and 2 notices of claim.
Down to our next public comment period, which is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involved in the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. All right, the first speaker for public comment is Gary Borick.
My favorite uncle was a police officer all his life in Syracuse. I took the exam and passed and was going to be hired by the New York State Police Force. But by the time I got the letter to go to Albany for training, I was in New Orleans, newly married, and was not leaving. So I ended up not doing that. I dreamt of it, though, all my young adulthood. But good police do bad things. And you simply can't sit and say, oh, our police are wonderful, our police are... You have to be realistic. And you have to understand that they're human and they make mistakes. Remember the Depew issue? I didn't know when I last spoke on that. Depew paid $66,000 to a woman a brown-skinned woman whose civil rights were violated. That officer makes $225,000 a year. I think he's a sergeant. I'm sure he's been on that force for a long time and he's well respected, but he made a huge mistake. In our town, we paid $175,000 for an arrestee who was put in a jail cell and died 2 hours later. We paid $45,000 for a woman who was going to pay a parking ticket, I believe it was a parking ticket, had the same last name as someone the police were looking for. They arrested her. We paid $45,000 for that one. We paid $35,000 for a woman who was in an auto accident, took to the hospital. They arrested her for DWI. Allegation was they did it because she was involved in domestics with a friend of theirs who was on the Buffalo Police Force. We paid $35,000 for that. We now have a lawsuit by a man who claims that he was arrested, handcuffed, and while being walked to the patrol car they were going to take him back to the police station for, he was slammed face down into the pavement, knocking out his teeth, and they didn't give him adequate medical. I wanted to see the video on that because, all of these cases aren't always true. And what I found out was the video is not available. It's sealed. You know why it's sealed? Because all charges against him were dismissed. That doesn't bode well for us. The lawyer who brought that case is the same lawyer who convinced the town of Amherst they were better off paying $2.1 million for an auto accident allegedly caused by an improper police chase. That lawyer is handling that case. They had to bond for that one. Talk about taxes going up. We may be going up on that one. But that doesn't mean that our officers are always wrong when they're accused. Last year, we won a case in federal court. Woman alleged excessive force. Town took it to trial and won before a jury. That's great. But please don't be blinded. All police aren't bad, but all police aren't good. The town board is in control of the policy. We don't have to have a police force. Just remember that. You created it. Not you people individually, but our town board did. They answer to, it's civilian control. Just like the military, civilian control in this country. So just keep that in mind. Don't be going off, oh, they're all great. We don't do. Our police are overwhelmed with the crime they have. Take them out of the federal enforcement of immigration law so they can focus on the crime we have in our own community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Wally Carriero.
Good evening. First, let me start by saying thank you, Brian, for attending the Dick Urban Community Association meeting. I hear it went over very well. I also want to thank Rick Rusniak, who also was there that evening. Certainly appreciate the participation from public officials at our local community group. A couple comments really is the fact that you guys made a decision to raise rates on rentals when you didn't even know how many rentals you had last year, how much revenue was generated. Is this a popular thing? Is it not so popular? Do we do one a year? Do we do 1,000 a year? We don't know. But you guys made decisions to change prices. If it was popular, I might have went a little bit more. Maybe if it wasn't so popular, maybe I would have held the line. I don't know. I just think that I'm sitting here listening to the information that you're getting, and I'm saying to myself, how do you make a decision? I might as well get a dartboard in here, so if in doubt, you can throw a dart at it. In addition to that, talking about these new Americans, to be politically correct, when you invited these people into my town, and I was at the meetings for that, you have to say that I'm probably closer to the most new Americans in Cheektowaga than anybody else based upon where I live. And one of the things that's concerning me these days is the abuse that's taken place, where I hear CPD being called to 901 Dick Road because a 13-year-old is beating up his parents and they're in fear for the 5-year-old's life that's in the room. Or how about the fire on Genesee Street, where it took mutual aid from Highview and Depew and Ucrest and Bellevue and Pine Hill all to come there, and they had to bring the big fans in, and they had to find the power shut off. I mean, it was a popular day. It was a weekend fire, right? So I'm sure everybody heard about that fire. I'm still living in that community. You know, maybe everybody feels safe. There's a lot of single women here tonight, and the fastest way to make those guys legal is if they would go get married. It's problem solved. They can solve their own problems, and we don't have to live like this. In addition to that, I want to just say thank you to the town board for the decisions that you did make. You made some good decisions tonight. And Vern, they can't get rid of every phone bank caller on your wish. They got to give a few jobs out to political patronage. I mean, Brian screwed already. Thank you.
Maisano.
And he was there too.
I'd like it on the record, I was there too. They just didn't give me time to speak.
He was there too.
Late. I had to do a funeral. I got called in to do a funeral. One thing was brought up a couple times by some of you and some of the citizens. The Citizens of Advisory Board was starting to be manipulated to start it. And that was because of Chief Slawinski. Chief Slawinski approached me, asked me if I'd be willing to go on it. And I said, of course I would. Chief Slawinski died not too long after that. Okay. And then we had a succession of different chiefs. So that was starting, okay? That was not put aside. That was not just poo-pooed away, but that was there. They were going to start that. How they would, and again, it's up to you guys to approach the chief, and they need help. I mean, there are citizens who'll be willing to go on that board because we care about our town. We care about the residents, and we care about our police officers. All right. The second thing I want to say is I have some people are not going to like this and really don't care. There are some dangerous things going on in the town. That's because people are too lazy to go shovel. Now, I understand that some can't because of elderly people, and the kids don't do that anymore. They won't go out, and ask, can we shovel your walk? No, they don't do that no more, unfortunately. But yesterday I saw something on my street, and I commend the town of Cheektowaga because it was a man from the town putting orange paperwork on the doors telling them, shovel your walk. Because we got people going, they want to go to the store, they can't, they have to walk in the street. That shouldn't be. But I really am really appreciative of the department, and not sure what department it is. It's not what department would that be?
Code enforcement.
I commend them for sending people out, starting to say, no, you start shoveling your walk. Now it's ice. Now it's going to be ice and not the other ice. Okay? But it's going to be ice. It's going to be hard to break. But, we want to make our sidewalks good for our residents to walk on, not walk in the streets. And people walk their dogs, they walk the dogs in the streets. Come on. So thank you for code enforcement doing their job over there.
That gets us to supervisors' comments. Couple.
I didn't sign up. Could I say something?
Sure. What's your last name?
McLennan, Robert.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, please approach.
Hi, my name is Robert McLennan. I live in the town of Amherst.
And I came here tonight thinking I was going to commend you and thank you for passing that resolution about ICE, because I think it's very important. I've submitted a resolution to the Amherst Town Board. And since you've tabled it now, I would ask you to think about something else in slightly different terms, not just about ICE. Because my resolution to the Amherst Town Board, which has been amended and shortened once already, is focusing on the fact that for the past year, our Constitution has been trampled on by the Trump administration, and the majority in Congress does nothing to invoke their rights as an equal branch of government. The Supreme Court has declared Trump above the law, and our democracy is in crisis, and it's falling apart right in front of our eyes. And I think as a grassroots level effort, I would like to see communities in Western New York start a trend where the form of government closest to the people is you guys in village boards and town boards. And I would like to see people like you speaking up and town boards speaking up and saying, you take an oath to defend the Constitution or protect the Constitution like all office holders do. When are we going to speak up on what's happening in Washington? So I would ask you to take what you've tabled and go back and look at this a little bit more in the big picture, because this is like what's happening. Then the Nazis didn't immediately start killing people. They started doing things in this direction, and they eventually got there. And the fact is, we need to look at this and not look the other way and pretend this is going to be okay. Former federal attorney Denise O'Donnell had a piece in the Buffalo News a couple days ago calling on all elected officials to speak out about what's happening with our national government. And you can't say it doesn't affect Cheektowaga or Amherst, because what's going on in our national government cuts SNAP benefits, changes health insurance premiums, and the fact that we live under a democracy and we want to keep it that way. So I would ask you to consider that, and I thank you for your time to let me speak. Monday, February 23rd is the Amherst Town Board meeting, and I'm led to believe after my meetings with a couple board members that there will be some kind of action proposed like you did. I don't know if I'm not saying what it's going to be. Maybe it's what you tried to do. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, but something's going to happen there, and I plan on speaking on it at the Amherst Town Board meeting as well. Thank you for allowing me the time.
So sorry, first time, so I didn't know there was a second sign up. Couple things. Brian Pilarski, really disappointed in you because I voted for you, and I found you willfully uneducated on the topic, which is just unacceptable when you are on a town board. Please do more research. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to educate you. I'm more educated as a citizen. A few things you mentioned. First thing, you said you were concerned that Buffalo Police Department was going to cease helping us, right? If we didn't help ICE. Buffalo PD has already stopped helping ICE. Why would they stop helping us if we stopped helping ICE? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Second thing, illegal immigrants, just to be clear for all the citizens here, because this was mentioned a few times, illegal immigrants statistically commit 1/3 of the amount of crimes that U.S. citizens commit. So how about we start deporting our U.S. citizens that are committing crimes, right? If we want to go down that path. And the last thing I wanted to mention was that you said that our police are doing great jobs. They're already not racially profiling, basically. One thing that they are doing is asking immigration questions to people that they suspect could be illegal immigrants. How do you think that they figure out when they should ask those questions? Is it their accent? Is it the color of their skin? Do you think that when I get pulled over by the cops, I get asked about my immigration? Because I'm also a Canadian citizen, right? And at one point, I'm pretty sure my dad was here illegally. Marrying a U.S. citizen does not make you a U.S. citizen, just to be clear. But my dad wouldn't have gotten to ask those questions because he's a white Canadian, right? So I'm just a little furious as a town that has dealt with racist issues before. My husband's a Black man, and we get a lot of looks in public. We were terrified after the Buffalo Top shooting. And to think that our immigrant population, which by the way are the most amazing neighbors I've ever had in my life, they're so sweet, that an immigrant population is fearing calling our police, being witnesses, reporting crimes, even if they're here legally, because of the color of their skin, right? They are detaining these people without knowing their immigration status, just on a suspicion. Anybody on this board have your immigration, your paperwork right now proving that you're a U.S. citizen? No? Unless you have an enhanced license, you probably don't have it on you, right? We don't carry our social security cards with us. We don't carry our passports with us.
Yes, you do.
That's dangerous. Don't do that.
Guys, Dave.
So at the end of the day, asking you for your papers reminds me a lot of the SS, and saying that you were following the rules was not a defense at the Geneva Convention. So if we are following the rules of what our Department of Homeland Security says right now, that doesn't make us non-complicit at the end of the day. So thank you. If you'd like to talk, please.
Brian? Yeah, you're going to be our last one. Mr. Burkhardt.
Dave Burkhardt. I think people forget that people that work for ICE, they can be your neighbors too. I mean, and as far as the two people that got killed at those protests, if they stop you and they want you to get out of the car and there's one policeman next to your door and one in front of you and you floor it and you hit that policeman, I mean, I don't doubt that he's going to fire and then try to stop you that way. And as far as the guy that had his pistol with him, if I go to the Polish festival that you have in Town Park, and if somebody walks in and he's got a pistol with a couple of magazines with him, I think he's going to cause some interest with the police department and possibly be arrested. You shouldn't have a pistol with you when you go to a protest like that. I mean, I don't. The people that have drunk driving and killed Megan. Larkin Riley and a couple of the other people, they killed young children. I don't want them as my neighbors. And they've come here illegally. They're all illegals. And they're gonna arrest the people that have got criminal records and the ones that are hanging around with them. They're doing a good job. I want to feel safe for my community. I want them out of here. I seen what they did at the hotel. The one guy raped a couple of people. And I don't want them in our town. And so, you got maybe the majority that do, but I don't want them as neighbors. I want to feel safe. And that's the way I feel that we should do it. Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to move on to supervisors' comments. A few things since the last meeting. On January 30th, the Chamber of Commerce hosted a State of the Town address. I had the opportunity to address the crowd there and talk about a lot of the good things happening in Cheektowaga. This Thursday's B paper, I'll have an editorial in that covering some of the highlights from that State of the Town address. I also had an opportunity, like Wally and Reverend Rick pointed to go to Duca and talk about the state of the town. And I will be at the Neighborhood Watch next month to do the same. Had an opportunity to go to the William Street taxpayers meeting and talk with those fine folks about what's happening in town. And the taxpayer meetings that we have one coming up this Tuesday, the Town Park Community Association meeting. They're a great opportunity in addition to these town board meetings to get out and meet your neighbors and discuss the issues of the day and spend some time with your elected officials. I brought up during the discussion on one of the resolutions the 3 hotels with asylum seekers, and one of those in particular has been converted to a hotel where Erie County Department of Social Services is housing homeless folks that are here as citizens or here as permanent residents. And years back, we talked about the issues in these hotels with asylum seekers. If you compare statistically calls for service and the issues that are in the building now compared to a few years back, or you can go prior to the asylum seekers back when the hotel on Dingens there was just open up to the general public. There's statistics to show that there was less demand on the police department when the migrants were in the building. It's an interesting thing to check out compared to the U.S. citizens. It bears out in the numbers. And that's not to take away from the bad things that happened at that point or at any point, but it's just an interesting thing to see. So when people cite these statistics, we see that in real life in this town. But with this issue more widely, our resolution regarding ICE cooperation is tabled. I think our town board has an opportunity to take a look at what's being proposed at the state level, take a look at what's happening at the federal level, and make sure that what we're planning to do here is Cheektowaga specific. We deal with Cheektowaga issues, and it is intertwined with what's going on at the federal level. But there are things moving in state legislation right now that may partially solve the issues that we're looking at here. And that legislation may be passed in the next few weeks. Highly doubtful. It's probably going to get stuffed into the budget, and it'll be left like that. I'm glad to see this message, and I'm very sorry. This is about the sign on Borden Road. It still has graffiti on it. I was on Borden today looking for the sign. I personally couldn't find it. You did inform me for the last 3 months. I've passed it to highway. I've passed it to sign maintenance. I'm going to do it again. And at some point, I'm probably personally going to have to take care of the sign myself. You have my apologies on it. I'll relay the message again. That's all I've got. Go down to Mr. Pilarski.
All right. I'd definitely love to touch base at the end of the meeting. Let's exchange contact info and talk. When I said Buffalo wasn't going to work with us, I said that would be one of the unintentional consequences that could happen, just like any other law enforcement agency not wanting to work with us because we aren't working with them. But I'd definitely like to talk more on it. My reservations about that resolution, it's not that I'm pro-ICE, I'm anti-ICE. I cannot stand what ICE has done. They outright murdered somebody, but we cannot label a certain population, whether it's our police, whether it's teachers, priests, whatever, with the stroke of the same brush. Each group has some bad apples in the bunch. Our police, I believe in them. They're doing a great job. I've seen nothing that would make me, at this point, say that, hey, they're wrong on anything in regards to this, actions with ICE and that. I have reservations the way it is. When we start doing policy and changing policy, or even approaching that without having a full conversation with our police chief, with our law enforcement officers, and our community together, we end up just piecemealing things together and then going back and amending stuff or adding stuff or taking away. I do not like bail reform right now. It's no secret. I said it from day one when it came out. I don't like bail reform, and look what the unintentional consequences we have right now. We have 15-year-olds stealing cars, getting arrested time over time, and continuing to steal cars. We had a 15-year-old hit one of our own police officers, all right, critically injured. We had a 15-year-old hit somebody right near the 33 right here in Cheektowaga and is now being charged for murder. I mean, these are unintentional consequences when we don't sit down at the table and bring all stakeholders to the table. I'm not saying bring one side and make it biased. I want half of the group to be anti, and then let's have that dialogue back and forth. When we say, I heard a couple of us up here say that, hey, the police chief's in favor of this resolution. The police chief's in favor of the 3 or 4 resolutions he was presented. We've never had that dialogue to sit down and say, hey, what is your opinion overall? How would you tweak this? What are your concerns about the policy that we have in place? It was a question about, here are the 3 resolutions. Which one do you think is best so we can get one on the agenda? I have a problem with that. I just don't think we did the right first step. We may come back to this. This might be our end result. We all might say, hey, that's good. We've addressed it all. But that is my reservations on it. And I don't want to just keep going back, amending something or pulling a resolution. Like the supervisor said, we did that with social media policy. We've done it with many resolutions last year of just throwing resolutions up there, hoping that the crap would stick to the wall and stick, but it didn't. And then we'd had to pull it back. Let's get it right. Let's do it right and have everybody involved is the way I'm looking at it. But let's connect afterwards.
So first I want to say to Councilmember Barb, thank you for just bringing that to the table as far as us collaborating and working together. I think it's important that we do that moving forward. So I just want to honor and uplift that. In addition, happy Black History Month. And as we honor Black History Month, I want to recognize the legacy of Black trailblazers who expanded what leadership looks like in America. Leaders like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, whose lives remind us that dignity, service, and compassion can move a nation forward. Black history is woven into the American story, a story shaped by perseverance, sacrifice, and communities, learning how to make room for one another. And Cheektowaga reflects that story, and our diversity is one of our greatest strengths. Today is also personal for me. Today is my brother's birthday. He was also a Black man who taught me selfless service through how he lived, even as he suffered. He later transitioned from complications related to sickle cell disease. But I carry his legacy with me in this role, and I am committed to leading with compassion, humility, and respect for every person who calls Cheektowaga home. Because some of the most powerful legacies are born in love. They are refined through suffering, and they are carried forward in service. And that is something that we need to remember, that we must carry this legacy in love. We must carry this legacy forward in service. Thank you.
I'll be speaking on a different note than that, hopefully a little bit brighter. So a quote I've been seeing online a whole lot recently from Benjamin Franklin. I don't know if it's true or not, but the point that I'm getting to is the quote is, "A man that gives up his liberty in the pursuit of safety deserves neither." And I feel that that sentiment is shown a lot in the people who are looking to get rid of people from their community who were born in the wrong location by no fault of their own. I hope that we can see that through all the comments we talked about tonight, these people, while they may not have started their life in this country, desire to be a part of it here, statistics prove over and over again, they are business developers. They are people who improve the community, who create or who commit crimes at lower rates than fellow Americans. And I don't see anybody with their pitchforks out and the torches saying we need to get rid of, all the homegrown American drunk drivers or rapists. We should have that. I have no problem with that. Those are people I don't want in my community either, but there's no outpouring for getting rid of that section of society because they look like me. They look like a lot of the other people in this room. And to have those values just because of them being born somewhere else or being from a different place, I'd rather at least be consistent across the board and not have to worry about just because someone moved here that they're a drunk driver, but because they are a drunk driver in and of itself. Moving on from that, Vern, I'll apologize for speaking over you tonight. I don't have a large sense of pride. My gusto got to me, and I'm sorry. I want to have a good relationship with you. Additionally, I will apologize for not reaching out to you guys to put it in my perspective on why I didn't reach out. Sort of along the same lines of not bringing a Catholic to an abortion clinic is I felt that my point of view was diametrically opposed. If we can find a way where we come to a resolution where that changes and we do have a good common ground, I'll be happy to apologize for that as well. Hopefully we do get there for the whole town at large and for everyone on this board. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
respect the sentiment and the apology, and although not necessary, but I do appreciate it, but not necessary. But thank you for your honesty on that, as well as sharing your opinion on why you would not share that information with us. And I get it. You're not wrong. Yes, we do agree on a lot of things, but I'm sure the supervisor says, there are a lot of things we're probably closer on than you think, but that's on us to figure out on our end. We could sit up here all night and go back and forth about, who should be allowed in or who shouldn't be, but big picture, I think there's countless of Americans who were born here and are citizens here who we don't even take care of. So what about taking care of our people who are suffering? How many homeless people do we have in this country? How many veterans do we have? How many senior citizens, children that are, kidnapped in our own country that we're not actively searching for and fighting for? So I could go on that forever, but that's just the one thing that sticks in my head. But that's all.
Just real quick, communication is key and working together is key. And I believe in it, and that's what I want us to do. And together we can do great things, working together. And Tiffany, thank you for sharing your thing about your brother, and may your brother's legacy live on. And together, working together will make his legacy live on.
Okay, I'll start off by earnest apology for not bringing that to the attention. I'd say among the sponsors, we came to a decision at 11:55 a.m. on Wednesday. This was not the first draft, but wanting to come to agreement amongst ourselves. But after that, we should have brought it up for discussion. And, we live, we learn, and I know you'll give us grace because we've talked about that. This past couple of weeks, attended the William Street taxpayer meeting and attended my first fire commissioners meeting. Very impressed by that. Going through my notes, thank you, Reverend Rick, for bringing the history of the Police Advisory Committee. I'm not sure the exact name of it, the history of that, because I was curious about that and why it ended. And I'm definitely in favor of bringing more community members. I'm a little concerned about bringing two groups of opposing views because the chefs in the kitchen can't agree on a recipe. I just made that up. I feel like we can work to find common ground, and I do think there needs to be a variety of opinions in the room. One thing that came up was the shoveling. I know we discussed code enforcement going out a little bit more, so I'm happy to see that you saw that. One thing that Councilmember Lewis and I had been discussing is perhaps a way to bring it to the community where kids can earn volunteer credits to go to neighborhoods where the senior citizens may have a hard time and don't have the money to pay someone. I do have not as a town board person, but a meeting at my children's school, shared decision-making meeting. So I just want to bring that up to some admins there to see if we can get a pilot program and how to get that started. Because I do need government credit and economics credit and all types of volunteer credit for a lot of things. And I think I do see kids out in my neighborhood trying to earn $1, and my son comes home with pocket in his cash. So I know kids are out there. So we just need to be able to help each other.
One last thing before we close the meeting. I got the orange stuff. I did talk with the board in all seriousness about the vehicle policy related to the town supervisor. I got video if you guys want to look at it. I got the fuel log since I got sworn into office. If we can bring it up at a work session, like I said in the email. And I know some folks were upset by that, but believe it or not, the washer fluid is still frozen today. So I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the discipline of a particular person and also deal with attorney-client privilege. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are entering executive session with